Serious? What's a disaster that is very likely to happen, but not many people know about? Most people don't realize how fragile the US, and I'm guessing other countries, food systems are. There are very few smaller family farms, everything is corporate owned. If anything disrupts the distribution channels, a truckers strike, warehouse house strike, most supermarkets will be put of fresh food in 3-4 days. And when that starts, the panic of buying canned food will clear the rest. Not a doomsday guy, but you can fit a lot of staple foods under your bed if you don't have pantry space. As far as global pandemics go, COVID was not nearly as devastating as it could have been. Keep all aspects of COVID the same, but increase its lethality. For context, the bubonic plague killed 80% of those who became infected. If something with the same transmittability and lethality as the bubonic plague manifested today, especially now that we've seen how people respond to pandemic controls, we'd be finished. Deepfakes. You may think you can tell the difference now, but as it gets more sophisticated, you're not going to be any better at identifying it than your grandparents. What will the world be like when we can't trust anything we see or hear? What will happen when anyone can make a video of you saying anything they want or deny the terrible things they are doing by simply saying it is a seek fake of them? I sincerely believe the consequences will be the end of humanity as we know it. The true disease scare is in fungal infections, as they are becoming harder and harder to catch, easier to misdiagnose, and there are some fungal infections spreading right now that can live on surfaces for months, be missed, feed easily, and are not susceptible to most antifungal. Look up Candida auris. The big one in northern Utah. We live on near a fault line that rarely produces earthquakes. A 5.4 with a ton of aftershocks happened. So some awareness has been raised, but there's countless buildings, structures in Salt Lake County alone that will collapse in an earthquake. I've worked with water for the majority of my professional career. If the average American had any idea how uneducated and stupid your average water operator is, the disaster is already happening. Water and wastewater districts all over the country are lying about what's in the products coming out of their plants. We will have quantum computers. When that happens, there is going to be massive implications given that it cracks modern encryption. Even if we move to encryption that isn't crackable by quantum computers, all the data that existed prior will be able to be unencrypted, so all the current data that governments and bad actors have squirreled away and stored, waiting to be able to mass decrypt it, will be available to them. The Cascadia subduction zone off the coast of the Pacific Northwest will rip again. Depending on the specifics, it will be a really bad day, or an utterly catastrophic day, for the PNW. That will be from the earthquake itself and from the subsequent tsunami. It rips every several hundred years, and the last one was in the year 1700. Here's an article about it. This piece is in my top 3 long reads of all time, and I think about this part of it a lot. Once scientists had reconstructed the 1700 earthquake, certain previously overlooked accounts also came to seem like clues. In 1964, Chief Louis Nookmis, of the Huuaaht First Nation, in British Columbia, told a story, passed down through 7 generations, about the eradication of Vancouver Island's Pacina Bay people. I think it was at night time that the land shook, Nookmis recalled. According to another tribal history, they sank at once, were all drowned, not one survived. 100 years earlier, Billy Balsh, a leader of the Maka tribe, recounted a similar story. Before his own time, he said, all the water had receded from Washington state's Canary Bay, then suddenly poured back in, inundating the entire region. Those who survived later found canoes hanging from the trees. The ocean fisheries will collapse. Yesterday's trash species are today's featured catch of the day, will be tomorrow's memory. Harvesting is occurring at unsustainable rates while environmental degradation is steadily reducing habitat and forage ranges. For many people in developed nations, fish is one option, among many, For protein. For most people in developing nations, it is the cheapest and most accessible option. When it's gone, there will be catastrophic socio-political and economic upheavals. Wet bulb death. Drowning in humidity. I live in the southeastern US. I've become very familiar with the concept over the past decade since I work outside and the heat humidity are getting worse every year. It's really terrifying. It's gotten close to the temp humidity combo in a few places in the world in the last few years. It's like watching a car speed towards you. I'm not sure if this counts as a disaster. Folks have known for a while that in the coming decades Florida's municipal freshwater infrastructure will fail due to saltwater intrusion. It's already started in certain places and large metros like Miami are trying to curb it. TLDR, the bedrock under Florida is porous. Salt water gets into it from below, fresh water fills it from above. Sea levels are rising, salt water is pushing up harder. The fresh water on the surface can't get to the bedrock, both from active drainage and ability of water to reach the rock blocked by asphalt, buildings, etc. The fresh water is pushing down weaker. This moves the level where fresh water turns into salt water higher up in the bedrock, where all the current plumbing water inputs are. Most large-scale farming practices are non-renewable. Like we need to continuously find new ways to farm things or we won't be able to grow food anywhere near the scale we do now. WWII. People don't realize how close we are right now. NATO literally has 800,000 troops across the border with Russia. All of Europe is currently being staged and prepped to begin massive imports of men and equipment from northern seaports to Russian front lines. The US logistics is in full swing right now, preparing for war and shaping Europe into a superhighway to support a massive war effort. North Korea sending troops to Ukraine and cutting diplomatic ties with the South. Iran and Israel going at it. China has been increasing its harassment and rhetoric towards Taiwan and is inching closer to supplying military aid and support to Russia. China also has a defense pact with North Korea. If war breaks out between North and South and China honors its pact with North Korea, the US will also then be involved to defend South Korea. Russia and North Korea also have an Article 5 type agreement. So basically it's a Mexican standoff between all the world's biggest and most powerful countries. Once one country flinches, it's all going off. The world is a super dry tinderbox right now and your drunk uncle is smoking next to it carelessly. The world has spent the last 50 plus years building up its military and alliances for this exact situation. By the early zeros, the American GPS system that most of the Western world relies on had become so precise and had so much technology based on it, that the Bush admin approved the dismantling of its analog equivalent, which was then performed under Obama. Besides our smartphones and airplanes, things like farm equipment and even loading-unloading equipment at ports now relies on it exclusively. Russia's version of GPS is basically as advanced, but they have maintained their analog system as a backup, while simultaneously working on missiles that could cripple ours. With no analog backup, we'd be screwed if they started taking out our GPS satellites. Edit, I should have included that by analog I meant ground-based. Russia still had their ground-based GPS equivalent, so if their satellites go out they have a ground-based alternative. We don't, because we shut down and dismantled our ground-based system. China invading Taiwan and a major semiconductor shortage would pretty much bring so many things to a halt. Deep in space, there are infinitely many supermassive black holes surrounded by accretion disks of matter swirling into the event horizon. That matter gets hotter as it falls hot enough to become plasma and emits extremely high energy radiation. Since it swirls like a disk, most of that radiation is concentrated in the directions of the black hole's poles, creating death rays that can go almost indefinitely before dissipating. If one happened to end up pointed at Earth, it would be powerful enough to vaporize the planet in seconds, and there's nothing we could do about it. The Canary Islands has a fault line. La Palma, running through it, such that a collapse could cause a 1,000-meter high mega tsunami. NGL. When we look at our forever state, I do look at elevation. First heard about the potential for the Canary Islands to create a mega tsunami about 20 years ago. Unlikely in this lifetime, but it will literally reshape continents. Earthquakes are rare in Boston, but if one similar to the Cape Ann earthquake in 1755 were to occur today on a much more populated north shore of Boston, the damage could be catastrophic for that area. That quake was quite possibly related to the horrible earthquake a few weeks earlier in Portugal, straight across the Atlantic. If another big one hits there, New England could be next. Large parts of Boston are built on land reclaimed from the bay and rivers. If a big quake hits, that could all liquefy and collapse half the city. In 1944, the SS Richard Montgomery, a victory ship built during the Second World War, ran aground and sank off Sheerness carrying munitions for the Allied war effort. In 2024, she's still there rotting away in the Thames with 1,500 tons of high explosive. If she ever explodes, she'll be one of the largest ever non-atomic explosions, sending debris to 300 m, inundating nearby towns, and threatening London with a 5 m tsunami. The environmental devastation would be catastrophic and the death toll could be in the hundreds or thousands. It would probably cause a massive gas leak from nearby gas plants. Almost literally a ticking time bomb. Gamma-ray bursts. They are the largest known explosion events in the universe after the Big Bang and are thought to occur when a high-mass star implodes during a supernova, collapsing into a black hole or neutron star. It's very rare, but a gamma-ray burst even as far away as 8,000 light-years from Earth would be enough to destroy our ecosystem if not immediately sterilize the planet. Death for all. The part of it that's the real kicker? Gamma rays travel at the speed of light, so we wouldn't know if one was coming until it hits us. It could happen any second, and we'd get no warning. Yellowstone is an actual supervolcano that has blown up every 650,000 years or so. That's why it has so many hot springs and geysers. There's ducking lava underneath it. Its caldera is centered under the lake. The lake has been getting warmer, and the center of it has risen a little bit. If I recall correctly, it's been about 650,000 years since the last time it blew up. I don't know how likely it is in our lifetime, but the Yellowstone supervolcano will, eventually, blow. Yellowstone will almost certainly not erupt in our lifetimes, and the next eruption is unlikely to be a super eruption. The term supervolcano is kind of a misnomer. A volcano is termed a supervolcano if it has produced in its past an eruption explosive enough to be considered a super eruption. It does not mean that every eruption is a super eruption. At Yellowstone, most eruptions have not been super eruptions. Should Yellowstone erupt in the near geological future, we have no reason to believe that any impacts are more or less likely to be felt outside of the park itself. Volcanoes are also never really overdue for an eruption. Their magma chambers either have the characteristics necessary for an eruption, magma intrusions, percent of melt, pressurization, gas buildup, etc., or they do not. Yellowstone has nowhere near enough of the ingredients for an eruption at this time. Magma chambers are not being refilled at constant rates. It doesn't take, for example, 600k years for Yellowstone to recharge. It may be shorter or longer between eruptions. Time isn't an indicator. It's the movement of magma and gases into the magma chamber which is critical, but even this isn't driven by time. Volcanoes instead ebb and flow, each to its own natural rhythm. In some years, one might see more magma enter, ground inflation rates increase, etc. In others, magma will leave the chamber, ground will subside, etc. It's when there are sustained material difference in the background rates for a particular volcano that causes geologists to be concerned. Yellowstone continues to ebb and flow well within its historical pattern with zero indication that anything is changing. There has been ground deformation, yes, but at rates that are consistent with its background activity. Some years the ground rises, some years it falls. and it varies across the park. It hasn't been concerning though, as it is just how this volcano operates. Given the size of Yellowstone's magma chamber, scientists would likely need to see many years of evidence of unusual intrusions be concerned if an impending eruption, more melt, higher shallow earthquakes compared to historical average tremor, consistent ground deformation, more gassing, etc. There is nothing indicative of any impending eruption.